so that I'll have it. Hey, Steve. Um, so this
Steve.
is the third of our trainings as we're working towards our state convention. We are going to starting next month. We're going to start meeting more frequently, and we're going to start getting into the nuts and bolts of programming for the convention and all that good stuff. But this is one of our last trainings to kind of prepare ourselves for that. And ask Jose to join us. He did this training for us at Bread for our org team. And then I had this training again over the summer when I went to IAF training in July in Queens. So it's really valuable. It's going to be helpful for us, I think, as we're trying to get these lawmakers to do what we want them to do, right? So this is called Stickman. This is how we kind of determine what's important to a lawmaker, because if you want them to do what you want them to do, you need to know what motivates them, right? So if you don't know, Jose Soto is he was our regional organizer in the Northeast. He's now back home in Puerto Rico. Have you started law school, Jose, or are you about to start law school?
Oh yeah, I started last month. Yeah, it's been uh, and I started my new role at Bread last week, and I think we're doing okay, but always very excited for the opportunity and to keep working with Bread and a lot of leaders.
Jose is young and bright, and we will one day probably have to be lobbying him when he gets elected to some office. So, and you'll see that today. So, Jose, do you want me to put up the slideshow, or do you want to put it up?
Oh, I have it up.
All right, let me make
Have
you
it
a
up. We
co-host.
can just
So
like that.
let's see.
Um,
There we go. And I'm going to let you take it over, and then I'll finish us out once Jose is finished. And we do have some more folks that'll be coming in. Hey, Frank.
um, Okay, so for now, I'm just going to show the big presentation. But as we move along, I'll make it a little more attractive. So hi everyone who joined. I'm Jose. The impetus for this presentation is a little bit to understand what really influences a congressperson. We'll talk a little bit about it, but I'll just get ahead of it, and I'm sure Jason's already covered it. It's either organized people, organized money, or some form of status, or the traditional kind of uh, levers we can pull to really engage a congressperson. But in each of those buckets, there's a lot of different ways of how you identify who is the organized money, who are these people with status that respond. And we're just going to do a little bit of a deeper dive on how to find that information out. I do speak really fast, so feel no shame in like interrupting me. And yep, happy to help however I can. Um, Before that, I do want to just real quick just get a sense from where everyone's at in the district. I know North Carolina is kind of huge and there's a lot going on this year in particular. So just a quick introduction, maybe. Or I can stop sharing for a second.
There you go. Why don't I just call on people? So, Kathy, you want to start us out?
I'm in Raleigh. Been with Bread for off and on for many, many years, but probably 15 here in Raleigh.
Beautiful city. I've only been once, so but hope to go back.
And since we're in Raleigh, Steve,
Hey, I'm a retired United Methodist clergy and convened the Raleigh group. Proud to have Kathy as part of that group, and I've been doing it about 10 years, so she's the veteran.
and let's see, Steve, you're originally from Iowa, right?
That's right. I've been in North Carolina since 1975, but they still haven't forgiven me.
And I feel like, Kathy, are you also from Iowa?
I'm also from Iowa,
That's
yes.
that's what I thought. See, I've got a little bit of a memory here.
Yeah,
All right,
we're
let's
Yeah,
we're
move
Kathy and
slightly
I are
west. Lloyd.
we're doing mission work, right, Kathy?
right, right. For the last 50 years, right?
Right.
Good afternoon. I'm Lloyd Schmeidler. I have been living in Durham since 1999, born and raised in the wheat state of Kansas, neighbor to Iowa, and have been active with Bread for the World since the early 1980s, especially active since I've entered the mission fields of North Carolina.
Thanks, Lloyd.
All right, slightly more west, Frank.
Frank Dew, Greensboro, and on the board of Bread, a Presbyterian minister. Glad to be working with Jason and this great group of Bread folks.
And Frank, I'm going to be in your town next week and the next week, so we need to hook up.
Great.
And then all the way out to the East Coast, down in Wilmington, Castle Hayne.
Castle Hayne, yeah. Wilmington, the way down in the east. I've just been here a couple years, so nobody's claiming me yet. But and I'm not from the Midwest.
Well, it's a pleasure to meet you all. And just quick yes or no, or head nods. Do you all feel like you know the people or how to reach some of the representatives that are in your districts?
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds great. Then let's see how we can maybe find more ways to engage them too. So I'm going to start sharing again. So these are some of the to hop right back into it. These are some of the things that we've identified that really influence politicians outside of anything else that we could do here at Bread, and we do some of these functions. But one of them are campaign donors, financial interests, family and personal relationships, political advisors, political agenda, staff, constituents, key institutions, life experiences, and we'll go through all of these really quick in the following few minutes. But this is just kind of a guidepost that we use to say these are some of the immediate connections that advocates or other legislators can kind of use to reach some of these politicians. One of the reasons we care about this is about who influences these politicians is because it helps us understand what issues they actually care about and what issues they're actually going to push forward in their campaign or during their terms. It helps us just build a relationship with them and eventually be able to have a seat at the table together with them. A lot of people, a lot of advocates go to Congress and they, are lucky enough or, have worked hard enough to secure a meeting, and they never really do any follow-up. They never follow up with in-district work. They never follow up with follow-up messages. They never follow up with staff. So we really want to make sure that we can cover the whole gamut of a congressional office or a Senate office, so we can understand what they're going to do and hopefully help influence what they will end up doing on a particular bill. One of the quickest ways to find out any information about any of the topics we're going to discuss is just Google it, look for it on the internet. If, for example, you hear Fouché or Representative Fouché cares about NAP to SNAP, then you Google Fouché NAP to SNAP, and if something comes up, then great. Fouché cares about Black farmers, right? Google that, see if they've done any action. Fouché with like GusNIP, just find a particular representative, any particular term, and you'll usually find something. And if you don't find anything, that's also really indicative of a fact that maybe more needs to be done. One of the other main things that we discuss here at Bread is around who finances these politicians, and this does matter quite a bit. There's this platform called Open Secrets that I can open up, and I hope you all can see this. But basically, it classifies what different types of industries give to a particular candidate. Some of them are elections, some of them are research organizations, media. It breaks it down into all different forms. But you can basically see some of the big ticket items. It's the U.S. Postal Service, Maverick Media, all of these consulting groups that end up giving to them, and we can do a deep dive on each of these organizations to see what they actually represent. Open Secrets is a platform that really everyone can use, and I'm happy to share the link and the resources in the PowerPoint and share it with Jason as well. But you can find any other political candidate that you are interested in, including the presidential candidates. I know we're a little tight on time, so I won't go through it, but here on the following slide is an analysis I did for Representative Molinaro for NY19. As you can see here, some of the major donors at the time, they were broken down into corporations, political action campaigns, foundations, and they all represented different interests. For example, the Marcus Foundation has an interest in agricultural or farm bill reform, and is a very big ag group. A lot of these other groups, they have to do with transportation, infrastructure, or manufacturing within the district. And they're all big organizations, corporations that end up giving to the Molinaro campaign. So if there's any, we were lucky enough at Bread to have a connection with several of the, Marcus Foundation was one of them, foundations that ended up giving to the representative, and we were able to leverage that connection to eventually meet in district with the representative. So I know we all come from different parts of life. We all have a lot of friends or connections in different sectors in our districts. So if you know someone in any of these organizations or any engineers, any sort of professional, it might be good to get in touch with them. This is the case study I just described with Marcus Foundation. After that financial analysis, so to say, of what are some of the campaign donors that give to any particular person, if you do find what corporation or any sort of connection, you can try to get in touch. There's quite a few different ways. One of them is just to see if anyone in the community knows that person, if you have a personal connection from a long time ago. And some of the more digital tools are LinkedIn and tools like Rocket Reach that I'll open up here. And I hope you all can see this as well. Looks like I have to log in. Well, essentially what this platform allows you to do is you can find someone on LinkedIn, let's say, we Google him here. Oh, let's say Bread for the World.
Although that McDonald's gig looks pretty sweet.
So I found Jason here. I can click view Jason's email. And we can get in touch we can find Jason's information if we don't have a direct connection. And we can get in touch. There's a lot of different tools like this. And again, happy to I have a little video that I can share. But if anyone has Jason's emails, maybe you recognize this email. It's a little scary, the fact that a lot of our information is available online. But if there's a particular congressional office that's hard to reach, or this is a good resource that you all can use to find someone, or also to find some contact in a company that you might not already know. Outside of this, there's the traditional LinkedIn that really is a way that I know at least we at Bread use it to communicate with people, either with foundation partners or honestly congressional offices sometimes. I know it's a little overused, but I think maybe it's overused for a reason. So again, I went really fast right there through Open Secrets and kind of identifying different industries that impact a potential congressional office. Any questions on that before I move on to some of the other points?
And I will send out a follow-up email that'll have all these links and also this recording in case you want to go back and see these.
So another really important kind of consideration when we think about what a congressional representative cares about is their financial interests. And by this, I mean their personal financial interests. Sadly, many decisions that some of these Congress people make are aligned with their own personal portfolios. Depends especially on the candidate, and it is something that both Democrats and Republicans have been found guilty for. This is something that former Speaker Pelosi was highly criticized for, but it's something that does not only affect one party or the other. In this website, Capital Trades, you can really look at all of the trades that any particular politician is making in their own personal portfolios. And the larger the portfolio, the more likely that they'll have a personal financial interest. Let's just choose the first one who's here, Max Miller. He has a 732K portfolio, and you can see some of the, way his trades go. A lot of the trades that congressional members are done through independent parties and through mutual funds, and there are some sort of vetting processes for the financial assets of these representatives. But unfortunately, you can also see an analysis of in this website of how they voted aligned with their particular industries that they're invested in.
Hey, Jose, go back and click. Kathy Manning was in the bottom right corner. She's one of ours.
Yeah, so she 23.14 million. That's pretty big. Let's see how we can break this down. Let's see if they have the details. So she's in education and labor. And right now we see that a lot of her investments are around tech and biotech. So maybe Kathy Manning is a little bit more ethical in some of her positions, giving her role in the Education and Labor and Foreign Affairs Committee. We'd have to do a deeper dive on exactly what some of her traded sectors are, but here you can see infotech, financials, healthcare are some of the primary ones. So maybe there's not as big a room for concern with Kathy Manning. But again, this information, I just pulled it up. Definitely need to do a little bit more of a deeper dive to see what exactly her positions are. But you all can access this information as well as when you're trying to understand how a particular congressperson votes. Yeah, and here I discussed Nancy Pelosi's financial positions. She was mostly in information and tech, and there was a lot of criticism for some of the bills she proposed. One of the other major things that I do think we do here at Bread is personal relationships. And with Representative Molinaro, we were actually able to connect with his mother. His mother has been very active in his political career in the past. He was a city councilor and then a district administrator for different programs in NY19 before he was elected. And his mother supported him through all of that. His mother went to I believe it was a UMC church in the district. And so we were able to actually end up connecting with the mother, meeting her, and asking her to connect us with her son. So that's something that did end up working out. I'm not inviting everyone to look for family of particular congressperson, especially if they're not involved in the political scene. But if they are involved in the political scene or very active in the community, it might be worth reaching out and trying to see if you can find them. Other ways that you can find personal relationships are just through looking through some of the campaign and member social media. If they have pictures with some people on there, then they probably want people to know that they're affiliated with them. So looking through Representative Molinaro's social media, we were able to find Tim Tebow, the local baseball player that's pretty famous. And we were also able to find out the local Catskill GOP committee and local legislators that Representative Molinaro ended up responding for, or to. Another good source of information for personal relationships, especially in the congressional sector, is which office they might have worked for in the past or who was their employer before. Oftentimes in Congress, there's usually some sort of a lot of people go to intern to Congress when they're in their 20s, and then in their 30s, after they understand a little bit about the political sphere, they come back and they are either elected or work in another office. If they have other governmental roles, it might also be helpful to see who's currently in that role, and see if they'd be willing to reach out to any particular congressman or senator. Another big source are political advisors, are people who have either contributed in the past to the campaign or the political or the agenda of any particular candidate. Representative Molinaro published a lot of feedback and endorsements that he received from different agencies and different political action groups. And so they range from the Broome County Republican chairman, Tioga County Republican chair, different forms of Republican groups within the district, but also Elise Stefanik, who's the chairwoman of the GOP, who Representative Molinaro has quoted as an advisor in the past and a friend. So I was also working in NY21, Elise Stefanik's district, and we were able to leverage that relationship a little bit as well. One other platform that we can use to see what type of people a representative can respond to is to see who endorses them. Vote Smart is a platform that basically tallies some of the major political action groups and some of the major think tanks in the US and sees how a particular representative is supported by each of these groups. If we want to look at, let's say, defense, then Representative Molinaro is not endorsed by defense. If we want to look at education, he's very well endorsed by Concerned Women for America and Legislative Action Committee, and he's split on the National Education Association. So this gives us like a good sense, and let me find agriculture to see if I can find it. There's a lot of different groups on here that cover a big number of issues. And you can see like how each of these groups have responded. If you find a group that is very supportive, like the American Energy Alliance, then maybe we can find a way to connect with that group to eventually reach the congressman as well. The more groups we can reach out to, so the Friends Committee on National Legislation, I think we definitely have a good relationship at Bread with that group. So that's a potential, also connection we could do. Whoop. We've covered a lot again on what type of people and what type of organizations endorse a particular congressman or senator. But another thing that informs us of how a particular congressman or senator thinks is what their policy platform is. What do they say they're going to support? What is their policy platform on their website? What are the press releases? What are the topics on the press releases that they emit? What are some of the national media coverage that they've gotten around certain issues? And what are they campaigning on for their upcoming year? This is particularly relevant for House offices that often change and have to reevaluate their campaign priorities very frequently. Representative Molinaro's policy platform was on the website. Some congressional offices, believe it or not, don't publish their policy platforms on their website. So in that case, it's best to recur on news outlets and just see what they've done. And we'll go through a case study in the next slide. In order to validate what people actually vote for, the best option is congress.gov. In congress.gov, you can find a particular line item account of each of the different bills that the congressperson has either voted for or done some sort of co-sponsorship for, or some sort of congressional action around. And you can see if they really put the pen to paper on what they say they're going to do. Representative Molinaro, looking through some of the bills that they supported, cared about healthcare, veterans, guns, job, nutrition, and workers. Six of the 9 priorities that he addressed. So that's better than most for a lot of congressional offices. This one is something else that we also, and I think we at Brett have talked about it a lot. Staff actually do have a big role on whether a congressperson votes a particular way, from as easy as putting a vote or some sort of document on someone's desk to, recommending that they do a particular action. So there's different forms of tools that are available. I think Jason can probably help out a little more with this, to trying to find out which staff are in which district for a particular office, and which of those staff are actually relevant to the issue at hand. We have a platform, Politico Pro, where we can find particular congressmen, let's say Molinaro, congressional director, Representative Molinaro. We can see here their profile, and this platform also does a lot of other stuff like legislative activity. But to the point of staff, we can see their entire staff portfolio and find who are the staffers that cover agriculture. In this case, Doug Gordon for agriculture and food. And you can find their information, phone and email as well.
And to be clear, Politico Pro costs money. So if you get to this point and you need a little help, we have a Bread account that we share. So reach out to me and I can help you with Politico Pro.
Something else that does impact how close or how a particular representative reacts to constituent outreach is how close their elections were. There's another platform called Ballotpedia that is particularly relevant right now as the elections are happening, that show you a particular upcoming election and past elections and how they've gone. So Representative Molinaro, in particular, he had a very close race in 2022. Very, very close. As you can see, it was less than 4,000 votes. So he is very interested in receiving constituent outreach. He wants to make sure that he can, feel that he is representing people's best interests. So this is another just kind of tool that you all can use as you develop your criteria for what moves a congressperson. And we're getting to the end. Some of the other things you can find, usually on a congressperson or senator's website, is you can find where they went to school. Were they part of any organizations? Were they part of any union or labor groups? Or do they go to church? What church do they go to? You can find a lot of this on a particular congressperson's website, Wikipedia page. And then, for example, if Representative Molinaro went to Dutchess Community College, one of the follow-up activities that leaders in NY19 are going to do is that they are actually organizing a listening session in Dutchess Community College, and they're asking Representative Molinaro to come and attend. So if you have that if you can find that institution and then you can make a relationship with that institution, that's another way that you can reach out to the particular congressperson. And then life experiences. Mark Molinaro, he was a SNAP beneficiary for a long time. He had a tough childhood growing up, and he says that he knows, what it's like to be on these programs, and he says that he has motivation to move on certain issues. For whatever this is worth, it is good to know what their life experience is. Sometimes they vote for it, sometimes they vote against it. But one story that I do like to share here is that I've shared it maybe to Gary. I don't know if I shared it to you, Jason. My grandmother, in last year's advocacy summit, I brought her over, and Don Davis has a story around how his grandmother helped him when he was a child. And my grandmother helped me out in a time that I was a child. And so my grandmother walked up to Don Davis and kind of cornered him, and was like, "Hey, so this is my grandson," and told the story a little bit. And that what ended up happening is that Don Davis really connected with my grandmother, connected with her past experience, with his past experience with his grandmother, and ended up endorsing NAP to SNAP, which is a really good outcome, I think. So life experiences do impact elected officials. There's a reason they're there, usually. If there's a reason they're there, whether it's life experiences or other interests. As I mentioned before, like the news is pretty important. If a particular piece of press, goes against a particular representative's, stated priorities, they will probably be more interested in doing actions that show that they have corrected their actions. And if there's any sort of press that endorses a particular action that the candidate wants to keep doing, then they'll probably keep doing it. It's also just a good way to look for any new information, any new policy priorities that pop up. And there's all sorts of different news outlets, from national news outlets like Politico to local news outlets like, and even Facebook posts. They're all useful. Again, to this kind of point on news, it's important to see some of the statements they make. They can see how they responded after an election. You can see how they respond to major world challenges. You can see how they respond to upcoming votes or past votes of legislation that they've outlined. And you can see that there's a lot of things that can just help us make that stickman of what these congressmen and senators really care about. Just as a recap, with Representative Molinaro, just at a glance, we were able to get a collaboration with a nonprofit. He did not have any significant financial contributions. There were multiple professional relationships that lived locally that we were able to get in touch with. We were able to understand his policy priorities, and we were able to understand that he's in a swing district with a tight race, important to the GOP. This kind of just helps us center us on strategies moving forward and as we start to outreach to the office. These are all good pieces of information to know. Also important in the swing districts and when there's very tight races, it's important to look at who their candidate, who their opponents are. So in this particular race, we found Josh Riley, centrist Democrat, that has very appealing positions to a lot of Republicans in the district. So it's going to be a tight race. Again, we did the same analysis for who supports Josh, and it was a lot of tech companies and a lot of civil interest groups that ended up supporting him. And from that, we can say, if a particular interest group that does not support Representative Molinaro, but does support his opposition, let's say Representative Molinaro were to win again, that relationship with this particular funding group is important for the future. Yeah, so I covered a lot. And all of these tools are different ways that you can already kind of just start to dive a little deeper in any particular senator or congressman. And once you've identified it, you can ask leaders in your network for personal connections. You can try to meet these connections and ask them for actions, introductions to a particular office, or any follow-up actions that you might think about. And yeah, and it's a good way to end up solidifying a relationship with a particular office, whatever lever you all choose to pursue. So with that, I'll stop the presentation. I talked a lot for sure. I know Jason has something coming up for us too. So happy to answer any questions, and I'll put my email in the chat just in case I can help.
Any questions for Jose? Jose, do you mind staying on for a little bit? So I wanted to talk about this a little bit. So the last training that we'll do in October will be a power analysis. We're going to find out how much power do we have as Bread for the World in North Carolina, and that answer is going to vary from district to district. But in order to really get an understanding of that, we needed to hear this first, because we may actually have more connections than we know. And the only way we find out if we have those connections is to dig into some of these folks. So I want to, if you don't mind, I want to just do one together. Is anybody opposed to that? Let's see, who do we have here? Lloyd, Steve, Gary. Lloyd, you're in Ross's district, is that right?
No, I'm in Valerie Fushi's district.
Fushi's district. Okay. Let's do her.
Okay.
Let's just kind of quickly and in the next 10 minutes, Stickman Valerie Fushi. So where would we start? What do we want from her first, right? So what is it that we want from her? Well, we're moving into our Nourish Our Future campaign, which is around WIC, child tax credit. Let's start with one of those. Pick one of those.
A child tax credit.
Child tax credit. Okay, Jose, can you you have all the tools still open for us? Okay. So there was a bill in the House, right, that passed last year that had child tax credit included, right? So let's find out how she voted on that bill. Jose, can you pull that up and put us, you can share your screen again if you'd like.
Yes. Let me figure out how to do that. Fushi. Am I spelling that right?
Yes.
Yeah, you're right.
So here we can do a couple things. Do you know the name of the bill by any chance?
I can get it real quick.
Yeah. We can find Child Care Access Act of 2024. So Congress
Tax
people will
relief.
vote on.
It was called the Tax Relief for American Families and Workers Act of 2024.
Tax Relief for Families and Workers Act 2024. Cool. .gov. So here we can find the bill, and then here we can find back to this bill. We can find who the co-sponsors are for this particular act. So this act did not get any co-sponsors, but it did pass the House. So we can see who voted in the particular bill. And here we can see who it is. 357. Who's she? She voted yes.
So there we go. Now we're off to the races, right?
Yeah.
So what else do we need to know about her? This is open mic, so anybody can chip in. Are we having good success or trouble getting meetings with Fushi?
So far, we're struggling to get a meeting with her.
Okay, so maybe we need to figure out if we know somebody that knows somebody, right? How do we do that?
Look at follow the money.
Okay, so let's do that for a minute. Let's see who supports her. Got too many tabs.
Yeah. There we go.
So there we go.
Duke. Jobs and occupations.
Huh.
So workers, education institutions, women's packs.
I gotta say, your example from New York had hundreds of thousands and tens of thousands, and this tops out at about 10,000.
Yeah.
Anybody see any organizations on there we might have any relationship with?
Well, we have relationships with Duke University, but
Certainly.
I mean, it's a big institution. It'd be interesting to know who makes decisions about making a contribution to her.
Absolutely. So that would take us down another rabbit hole, right? Like
Right.
how do we get there?
Right.
And
So
sorry to
they
share.
already knows.
But Duke does have a World Food Policy Center.
Yes.
So, sorry.
So that might be a lead for us, right? Where else might we go to find out if we know somebody that knows somebody around Fushi?
Well, you could go back to David Price, who is retired from Congress and taught at Duke. He might have a connection.
Okay. What else can we do? Out of the tools that Jose showed us.
Show us a little more industry on that. Okay.
We could also look at LinkedIn.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking too.
Or if she has a Facebook page.
Oh, she does, for sure.
You know, I'm going to look at her LinkedIn since it'll be better for me to do that than Jose.
Her biggest PAC contributions come from labor.
And that's a tough nut to crack in this state, right? Not a lot of organized labor in this state outside the teachers' unions, right?
Transportation union is her biggest PAC contributor.
And
Interesting.
Durham has more organized labor than most areas.
That is true. That
Yeah.
is true. All right, Jose, do you mind if I share really quick? So I have my LinkedIn open. Can everyone see that?
Yeah.
So this is what LinkedIn tells me. It tells me that I don't have any first connections with her, right? So I don't personally know anyone in her office. Now, I have met Joshua before, but that doesn't help. And I've met Harden before, but that doesn't help because they meet people all the time, right? So you can read about what she's doing here, right? Get a little bit of biography from her. She was originally on the school board in Chapel Hill, Carborough. And I believe maybe she has a family member on that school board even now. So you get a little bit about her. But up here is where you can maybe figure out if you know somebody that knows somebody. So let's click on Joshua Marbury and see if we know somebody. So he went to Maryland, Baltimore County. I don't have anybody there. Emerging leaders, Maryland. So not a lot of connections there, right?
What was he doing before he joined Congresswoman Fauci's office?
So he went right in. He went from a
Congressman
internship.
White.
He's a young guy, so
right. He was an intern with Congressman White Evans. Okay.
Right.
Don't know that either.
Yeah, I'm I don't know who Dwight Evans is if I'm just telling the honest truth.
Probably Maryland.
Probably.
Yeah.
So let's try Hardin Spencer. So he's got a little bit more time. All these guys are young though.
Well,
But look at there.
he was working for a World Relief, which is a food
Yeah.
assistance organization, right?
Right. And
In
then look at there.
1718. I mean, that's 6-7
Yeah.
years ago, but suggests that he has some interest in hunger and food issues.
And an MDiv from Duke.
Yeah.
Magna cum laude, smart guy.
Yeah, sweet.
I
Right.
didn't get that. Okay, cool.
So
So
you
that's a
get the
direction.
idea, right? Now we start to see, hey, maybe we know somebody at Duke that knows him. Maybe we know a professor that remembers him that could make an introduction for us, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Often, and you learn this when you do fundraising, often if you can get the meeting, you're 80% there, right? You just
Right.
at some point you got to try to get the meeting. I'm going to come off share here. So what else could we do? Just spitball, and then we've got about 10 minutes left. And we'll talk about a few other things. What else could we do for Fuxi?
Well, it raises the question about calling their in-district office and just not getting very far. What
Right. Right.
between you and Jose, if you got any wisdom about that?
Oh, do you want to share, Jason?
No, go ahead.
Yeah, I can share for Representative Stefanik. We still we struggle a lot with that office. We at the beginning we had a group of around maybe 41 faith leaders that were interested in meeting with her. And I think that's a very significant group. And she sent us one of her staff people. And that was, after weeks of us like at Bread and the faith leaders calling. And so for her office,
Learn more at mathworks.com and BetterHelp Committee.
So for her office, I think it was really, she was a little scared that we were gonna, I don't know, we were gonna do something that we weren't serious advocates. We were gonna just go off on her about certain decisions. But after the staff met us, and they kind of cleared us and vetted us, then we were finally eventually able to have follow-up meetings. So my input on that particular office is like, even if you get a staff person, try to get a meeting with them. Even if they tell you like a regional director or regional staff, sometimes it's helpful to go through that process. But yeah, Representative Stefanik is also a very conservative member that is high up in leadership. So those leadership relationships are a little different too.
And I'll echo everything that Jose just said and add, in our state, we have been able to add to our relationship with both of our senators through staffers that we were fortunate enough to get meetings with as they were new in their role. So Senator Tillis has a new person who is in charge of his nutrition policy, Lauren. She's from Rocky Mount. And Matt and I met with her last fall when I went in Frank's place to DC for a meeting. And it was a good meeting. We hit it off. And at the time, they had just kind of stuck us with Lauren, if you want to know the truth. They just gave us somebody to meet with. But she ended up in charge of his nutrition policy, which meant that suddenly she had a role that was important to us, and we had built a relationship. And so those staff relationships are really important. And again, sometimes it really is just about, do you have someone who is comfortable making an introduction? And then we just take it from there. And one thing about Bread is once we're in the room, we're ready, right? We prepare ourselves. We don't come in stomping our feet. We don't. We're not trying to make newspaper headlines. We make a good impression once we get in the door. So often getting in the door is the first step. So any other questions? We've got about 5 minutes left, and I want to just close this out with a few thoughts. And again, just to remind you, by the way, hi Roger, hi Jill.
Hey, hey,
I'll send this recording out, and probably more important for you, I'll send all these links in a follow-up email. I know that when we did this training before, I was kind of just overwhelmed with the number of links. And so getting them all in one document so you can put them in a bookmark folder is really helpful. I will tell you that yes, it feels a little creepy when you start researching somebody's life like this. I have to admit, for me, it's also a little bit fun. You kind of doing a little bit of detective work, right? And trying to find out what makes somebody tick. But every now and then you really will find someone or some vehicle who knew that Duke was a contributor to her campaign, right? So we certainly all know folks at Duke, so maybe that's a door that can get us a closer relationship. So everybody say thank you to Jose.
Thank you,
Jose.
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 For the
Thanks,
information.
Jose.
Appreciate the
Nice
overview.
to meet you.
Good, helpful information.
Thank you, Jose.
Thanks for having me.
So just a few more thoughts as we close out. I like to start on time, finish on time. This quarter, we are going to have our quarterly update with the whole East Coast. So you'll get an invitation from Brad, and we're going to join with the whole East Coast and all get updated together, go through what's going on in the Farm Bill, if anything's going on in the Farm Bill, what's going on in our Nourish Our Future campaign, the progress of our listening sessions, all those good things. And then later in October, we're going to call a state only meeting to talk only about the state convention. And we're going to begin meeting more and more frequently to build up to that convention because, well, it's getting time, right? Be on the lookout for a calendar invite. Our last training will be probably about this time. So probably the second week of October, we're going to do our power analysis, and we're going to start figuring out what buttons can we push to get people to come to our Nourish Our Future launch, right? So we want two things out of our representatives. We want them to come to the state convention, or at the very least be represented there, right? And we want them to support our Nourish Our Future platform. So those are the things that we're looking for out of our lawmakers. Congress is back in session, so we're probably not going to get any more in districts until October. Our latest read is that probably even the last week of September, Congress will be finished, and they're going to go back home for October and politic and try to get reelected. I see some heads shaking. I understand that sentiment. But that's our read on things. Of course, we're wrong sometimes and things change. But I do know that as of today, we're going to run out of money soon, and the House was not able to pass a continuing funding bill today. Mike Johnson pulled that bill today. So we'll see what becomes of that. But my feeling is that they're going to be just trying to keep the lights on for a few weeks. Thank you all, as always, for your good work. Anybody have anything to bring up for the good of the order?
Jason, did you have a date for that update with the East Coast?
I do not, to be honest. It's a little bit out of my hands once it gets up to that level, and so I don't have a date on it yet.
Okay, thanks.
If I were guessing, an
Okay.
educated guess would say it'll probably be in that first full week of October, so sometime between 7th through the 11th. That's a guess, though.
All right, we'll just wait for announcement.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else? Thanks, everybody.
Thanks so much. Have a good one.
Thanks.
Bye-bye. Listen good.